in various committees at the administrative level. He has done his MCom and MPhil from Department of Commerce, University of Delhi. It is a privilege to have you here, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Anjali. First of all, a warm welcome to all the participants here, and my gratitude for the organizer for inviting me for this talk. The topic which I will be taking up today is a measure of association and correlation, and this will be a precursor to your next sessions, which will be in the area of regression and further parametric and non-parametric analysis. I will be assuming that some basic understanding in the previous session, which is on hypothesis testing, non-parametric and parametric. Okay, I will be continuing from that spirit itself. So welcome once again, all of you, and it's a new day and a new learning. There is always something new to experience. There is always something new to learn, and this is what we also be continuing today as well. So let's. I'm hoping that there will be some new value addition to all the participants in this case. I will be taking other sessions, followed by many queries which you might have, and I will be happy to answer your queries at the end. Okay, so you can note down and then probably shoot it.
Excuse me, sir. Sir, thoda sa can we be can we be a bit louder, sir? Thoda sa.
Sure, I'll try.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. So let's continue and let's embark on our journey of correlations and the measure of association. We are looking for a relationship between a set of variables, and when we are saying the set of variables, okay, variables could be of any of the four kinds, which you might have listened from the other speakers, which happens to be nominal scale, ordinal scale, ratio scale, and interval scale. So here again, I will be taking those itself and moving in the path which wherein we try to relate with these variables. Okay. I'm getting certain raise hands. Okay. Okay, so what we are taking is we are looking for certain examples of these measures of association. We are having a credit rating of various bonds, which happens to be AAA rated to a single B rated, and we are looking for whether there is a oversubscription or undersubscription. Can we have any measure of association? That is, the credit rating of the company is more and the bond happens to be more subscribed. So this might be one such example which we might relate. Another example which we can think of is something which is mostly in the domain of nominal data set as well. Okay. If you have a credit card, and do you really think that these are the two questions from the same questionnaire? If you think that having a credit card boosts your purchasing power, do you feel that you end up buying more rather than what has been required? So can we have this kind of association that use of credit card makes you purchase more? Okay. So can we have some sort of relationship between these variables as well, if we have captured it in a data set? So like that, okay, there are many examples which you might think of, and this what we are referring to, okay, as a measure of association. It tells you that how much, to what extent, one variable is associated with another variable. And to be formally defining what is the measure of association, it's a numerical index summarizing the strength, degree, and direction of relationship in a two-dimensional cross-classification of variables. Okay? So how two variables are being related. You can expand it to a multivariable case as well, and we'll take that example. Any measure of association correlation, okay, represents the mutual relationship between the two variables. So here again, at a time, we are taking two variables and we are trying to relate these two variables in a measure of association, and a subclass of that, you can call it as the correlation. Correlation, in a again formal setup, is the study of covariation between the variables, and correlation refers to the systematic movement of variables, uh, either in the one direction or in the opposite direction. So you might have two degree of relationships, which you might think, okay, so you have a credit card, and if you use more of credit card, you might end up buying more of the goods. Okay, if that kind of hypothesis works. When the two variable is in sympathy with each other, they go hand in hand, okay? And so that the change in one variable is associated with another variable, we formally call them as correlated. There are terms which are associated with these variation, which generally refers to as independence as well. Okay? So correlation and independence is again two different phenomena, okay, but they are correlated in one more way as well. We will talk about that too. When we refer to degree and direction of relationship, we refer to this measure of correlation. So in pretty simple word, okay, how two variables are associated, okay, or they move in tandem with each other is what we refer it as the correlation. And the direction of movement, which could be positive side or the negative side. That means if one variable goes up, the other variable goes down, or vice versa. If one variable goes up, another variable also goes up. That could be the various directions of relationship. This direction could be categorized into multiple stacks. You can have a very strong relationship between the variable. You can have weak, you can have a low degree of a relationship or opposite relationship. Those are the magnitudes in which we refer to these associations. These relationship can be linear, and these relationship can also be non-linear as well. But a measure of correlations is for the linearity itself. It's not for the non-linear for the time being. How to handle non-linearity, okay, we'll talk about it slightly at the end. The various measures of correlation which we can refer to, we get classified into two groups. One is a bivariate, that means between two variables, and or it could be multivariate, which is between two or more, or let's say three or more. Here we will be classifying in an exhaustive way. So three or more variables. So we will be referring that as a multivariate correlation. So correlations, two measures, bivariate between two variables, and a multivariate between three or more variables. A bivariate correlation will still be termed as a simple correlation, which you generally might have heard, okay, and that you have been using it at various places as well. While in the case of a multivariate correlation, you can have two classes here, partial correlation and multiple correlation. You also have a semi-partial correlation or part correlations as well. So there are different subcategories within these two itself. We'll be touching upon okay, all the three, but a multiple correlation you will be seeing more often in your regression analysis. So, you will have other more detailed discussion in the regression analysis sessions. One thing which you should be taking care of while you refer to correlation is the causation aspect. When you say correlation, okay, it does not necessarily means that you are having a causation as well. Causality or causation is the capacity of one variable to influence the other variable. However, correlation is not a guarantee that you will be having a causation as well. There could be some other factor which is affecting both the variables. So if you try to relate with various variable, it might be that at the end, at the back of it, the two variables is actually been affected by a third variable. Okay, a simple example generally been stereotypically being stated as okay, the frog's voices okay in the rainy weather and that of the rain. Okay, so if you try to relate that, okay, frogs start crying in the rainy season and it rains. So can you say that frogs crying okay, is a cause of the rain or vice versa? Rain causes frogs to cry. So if you try to relate them in terms of causality, you may not be able to have this kind of a relationship. Okay, so there's a different factor. At the background, there's entirely a different factor. Okay, when the water gets filled up, okay, frogs come out and they croak okay, in the loudest voices. So correlation, okay, in any case, okay, when you try to relate it with the causality, it will not always be possible, and hence you have to refer to theory when you try to make an association between the two variables. So correlation is different from causation, and correlation is when two or more things or variables tend to occur at the same time, while the association may not necessarily be related by cause and effect relationship. So we will not always be able to confirm whether there is actually causality while just looking at the correlation. So you have to work with the theory and in hard to work around whether causation and correlation are matching, giving you the same thing or not. Okay, our assumption generally still happens to be the same, that the correlation and causation is going hand in hand, but it may not always be possible. Okay, in all the cases. So, and you cannot imply one from the other. As I said, okay, we will be also having a discussion on partial and multiple correlation. That's another branch, okay, which we refer to. Let's move further. Okay, another example, instead of taking that of frogs and the rain, okay, we might also have ice cream sales and a shark attack, okay, which is another typical example that correlation is not causation. When you see the ice cream and the shark attacks, okay, so can you say that, okay, ice cream sales causes sharks to attack on the swimmers which go into the sea and attack the swimmers? If you see in terms of the graph, okay, the red line shows the number of sharks attacked in the entire year on an average, while the ice cream sales in blue tells you about what is the sales of the ice cream around the same period throughout the 12 months. Both the ice cream sales and the shark attacks okay, increases when the weather is hot and sunny, but they are not caused by each other. They are caused by a good weather. Okay, so if you try to make a relationship between these two variables, ice cream sales and shark attack, you might find that there are good, strong correlation between these two variables. But if you start commenting on whether they cause each other, the shark attack causes the ice cream sales or vice versa, ice cream sales causes the shark attacks, then in that case, that may not be a hold in a cause and effect relationship, because at the back of it, the underlying cause is that of a good weather. Okay? With lots of people at the beach, ice cream sales also goes up, okay, and they go and swim in the sea, and as a result, shark okay, attacks these swimmers, etc. So at the back of it, okay, that's this hot weather which make the people to take ice cream and also make the people to go for a swimming in the sea. It might be the underlying factor. So hence, you cannot always see that whether there is a causation okay, implied in the correlation. But I'm taking that as an exception. So don't too much stress on the exception, okay, and forget about the main principle. Okay, why do you exactly use a correlation? Okay? Because you really want to prove that there is a causation. Okay, so may not always be true, but yes, okay, we work under an assumption that correlation, if there's something which have been causing each other, they should also have a strong degree of correlation between them. Okay, another example of a linearity, okay, and strong causality, but no correlation at all. Okay? Or another example of non-linearity in terms of correlation. So suppose there is this is again a typical example taken from the textbooks. We have this graph and on the x-axis we are measuring stress, while on the y-axis there is a performance. Okay? Some amount of stress is being needed to a person to perform. Okay? So if you don't have any other stress, okay, to listen to an audio, sit in my class, okay, or to listen to any speaker, or okay, there is no test in the exam, okay, nobody is going to study. We only study when you have been confronted with, okay, whether you accept it right away or you realize it at a later point in time. Some amount of stress is always being needed, and only then you perform. So if there are no tests, nothing, no examination, okay, nobody is going to study as well. So if you really want student to learn, you have to give them some amount of stress. Okay? We call them as a positive way, as a U stress, EU and the stress. So some amount of stress is being needed. So as you go along the x-axis, performance will start increasing if you start giving them some amount of stress, which we refer it as the positive side of the stress. But if you give them too many assignment, too many tests, okay, and okay, too frequent an assignment, too lengthy a test, too difficult or too complicated a test, and in that case, okay, if you increase the stress somewhat more, the performance actually goes down. Okay, so relationship between stress and performance is not a linear relationship. Okay, it's firstly going upward and then it has been going down. To try to calculate correlation between these two variables, the correlation will simply be zero. Okay, so if we try to relate in this case, correlation will be zero. So this is a typical example where correlation is zero. Can you say that there is no correlation between stress and performance? The answer is again, okay, as far as linearity is concerned, okay, there is no correlation because your best statistics has told you that this is a zero correlated phenomena, stress and performance, but you have seen that it's a highly dependent phenomena. It's an invert U-shaped curve. So stress performance is dependent upon stress, but correlation is zero. Okay? So causation may not always be implying a correlation. That's again hold true. Okay? So because what is a point to be taken here? When you generally compute correlation, correlation is a measure of linear relationship. So if you have a nonlinear relationship, there is a possibility. I'm again saying the exception. There is a possibility that the correlation measure will be giving you no correlation at all, while there happens to be a causation. Causation is been there. Or in other words, performance is dependent upon stress for sure. We have seen that. But performance, if you try to compute a correlation between performance and stress, the correlation happens to be zero. There is a dependency, but no correlation. The various measures of correlation which you can use is, okay, you can simply plot it on the line chart and see it, like in the case of ice cream and the shark attack example. You can also have a scatter diagram, okay, which we have seen it for just in a case of the performance and the stress. And we also have a statistical measures which can also be implied for this kind of relationship. What are these statistical measures? We'll go one by one. Let's take the first one, which is a measure of association and computing a correlation. Association will be a much broader term to be used in that case. Correlation you might imply, okay, as Carl Pearson's product moment correlation, coefficient of correlation. So in this case, a measure of association for a nominal data set. Okay, what are the different measures? One such measure which you can use it only for a nominal data set is Cramer's contingency coefficient V. It's denoted by the Cramer's V. Okay, this is a measure of association between the nominal data set. So you have two nominal data set, okay, and you are trying to make a relationship between them. So if you try to compute a correlation between these two, a simple Karl Pearson correlation, which you might have studied, okay, may not work. So if you want to compute a correlation or association between a nominal data set, then don't use the Spearman's rank correlation, don't use the Karl Pearson's one. You can use the Cramer's V as the correlation coefficient measure. It's been given by V is equal to phi square divided by Q minus 1, okay, and the entire thing is in square root, okay, so raised to power 1 by 2. That's a measure which you can use for computing a correlation between the nominal data sets. Don't compute Karl Pearson's coefficient for a nominal data set. What is a nominal data set? I think some amount of discussion has already gone in the previous session. But as of now, okay, but just to recap one more time, nominal data sets are those data sets in which you only assign them in terms of different numbers. So for example, your mobile phones. Okay, so in the mobile phone numbers of all the participants, so these are all numeric data, okay, having a 10-digit number. Okay, and if you ask them Excel to perform any task, okay, on this mobile phone data set, okay, median measure, okay, central tendency, all measure central tendency, skewness, kurtosis, everything can be computed, but those are all meaningless because nominal data set is just for identification purposes, nothing else. It doesn't have any other property. So if you want to compute a correlation here, okay, then Cramer's V can also be computed, where Q is the minimum of the number of rows and number of columns, while phi square is the, because it comes from the contingency table, it's a chi square divided by the n, the number of observations. If in case you don't have any correlation, this V measure will be actually 0. And in case there's a perfect correlation, then this V measure will be equal to 1. It varies from 0 to 1. It doesn't have a negative version for us. There is no general consensus as to what constitutes, okay, pretty high correlation or low correlation, but this is one such table which you can read it from. So if the correlation coefficient happens to be between 0 to less than 0.1, then it's a negligible association. Between 0.1 to 0.2, it's a weak. 0.2 to 4, it's a fairly strong, and beyond 6, okay, 0.6 happens to be a strong association. This works for most social science subjects because there are a lot of random variation which affects our variables. Just taking an example, let's take opinion versus gender. So there is an opinion to which somebody agrees and somebody disagrees. And there are a couple of respondents, male and female, and they are also been put up. Now, male and female is a nominal data set. Okay, nobody is superior. Male is not superior, or female is not superior. Okay, no other purpose, no other identification except identification we can refer to. So they are not operable. No mathematical operation can be done. Male plus female is what? We cannot have any mathematical association in that case. Similarly, agree or disagree, okay, just for identification purposes. So in this example, okay, we really want to compute what is an association. Does the opinion, whether you agree or disagree, has to do with the gender, whether the person is male or female? Does the gender is associated with the opinion, or opinion is associated with the gender? Or can we have this kind of relationship? So there are 150 respondents whose data was being collected, 75, 25, 25, and 25. And we are able to, we have these observed frequency. The frequency in the bracket are the expected frequency, while the frequencies outside the bracket in each cell is the observed frequency. So 75 male agreed on a questionnaire, and 25 female agreed on the question itself, okay, and that constitutes 100 people who agreed. 25 disagreed, male who disagreed, and 25 female who disagreed. The total is again 50 here, and 150 becomes my total number of respondents. And this is a typical contingency table. And in this case, we need to compute what is the chi-square. Again, in your non-parametric discussion, I believe chi-square as the non-parametric measure might have discussed. So I compute an expected frequency of each cell. For example, in first case, it's a 66.7, which is 100, which is a column total. This 100, which is a row total. So 100 into 100 divided by 150, which is the grand total, gives me 66.7. That's my expected frequency. And similarly, I have expected frequency for all the cells. So observed frequency, how you compute chi-square, which is observed frequency 75 minus 66.7, which is my expected frequency, square of it, and divided by the expected frequency, which is again 66.6. You add them, okay, and you simply sum them across all the cells itself. So I get a chi-square statistic, which is 9.37. My phi square, which is another one more measure of association, is a chi-square, which is 9.37, which we just computed, divided by the number of observation, grand total 150. So I get it 0.0625. Cramer's V, we said, okay, in the previous slide, we said, okay, my Cramer's V is phi square divided by Q minus 1 and the entire thing in square root. Now, what is Q is the minimum of number of rows and number of columns. In this case, my number of rows are 2, agree and disagree. The third one is a total, so I'm not taking that as a valid row. And number of column is also 2. So 2 is the number of rows, 2 is the number of columns. Minimum of 2 and 2 is only 2. So I take 2, okay, and deduct 1 from that, okay. So 2 minus 1. So I take it a phi square divided by 1 and the square root of that, so 0.25. So 0.25, okay, is the measure of relationship between opinion and gender. And you can, from the table, we can read it, okay, that it is 0.25, fairly strong association, so a moderate association has been felt between these two variables. That's one measure which we can take it for the nominal data set. I'm just picking up one measure in this category. There are many more which can also be discussed, including phi, tetrachoric correlation, polychoric correlations. Phi in itself is another measure, and there are a couple of others as well. Let's take another measure of association, which is between the ordinal data set. Okay? So there you have the second level, it's not nominal, but order. Okay? That's a kind of data set. And then the interval and ratio. Okay? So we have a different measure of association depending upon what is the quality of the data set. Okay? And if it is across, okay, that means one variable is nominal, the another variable is ordinal or a ratio, okay, then how to compute. Okay, we'll talk about it further. So suppose now there are two variables which are in ordinal level data set, then you can refer to Spearman's rank correlation, okay, which works with the ordinal data set. And another one which you can refer to is Kendall's tau statistics as well, which these typical are most popular correlation measure, okay, which some of the students might have also studied as well. The formula for computation of rank correlation is 1 minus 6 times sigma d square n into n minus n square minus 1. Another measure which you can refer to is the Kendall's tau statistics, which again can be measured at concordance and the discordant divided by the all possible concordance and discordant, which is n combination 2 n into n minus 1 divided by 3. So divided by that, to get the Kendall's tau statistics. Now, both these two different measures of association between the ordinal level data set which we are having, you have a preferred preference of one over the other. Typically, it's been recommended to use Kendall's tau when you have ordinal level data set. And it's also been preferred when your data set is small and when there are a large number of tied ranks. Okay? So when same number of observations are repeated quite a number of times. In that case, okay, candles is a much better choice as compared to the Spearman's correlation. You can we can talk about more such methods as well. I'm just picking up two which are quite popularly being used and which have more power as well. I'm not going for the maths of it, unlike in the case of Cramer's wheel. Okay, here because here the softwares are been available. Your typical softwares, including SPSS, gives this kind of computation quite easily. Let's take an example for the ordinal level data set. In the case of ordinal level data set, we can refer to whether lying is creative people are the best liars in the world. Okay, it's taken from an example from the Andy Fields text, where he's been putting up a best liar competition, which is happening in the UK, and there and people who have won that competition itself. If I again take you through, I just open an SPSS file, which is for the biggest liar file. Okay, again taken from the Andy Fields data set. Okay, so let's change it. Is the SPSS file visible to all? Anshika, is it visible? Share this. I believe now the SPSS file should have been visible to you.
Yes, sir, visible.
Yeah. Okay, so now this file contains three variables. One is the creativity score of the individuals, and in the competition, the best liar competition in the world. Okay, and first, second, third, fourth position obtained by the particular respondents, and whether they were the first time participating or whether they have entered the competition before. That's three kind of variable which we have captured. Now we want to make an association between a ordinal data set, which is creativity. Okay, so how creative a person is. Okay, so there's okay, somebody who's been scoring 41 is better than somebody who's scoring 30. While in the second variable, okay, whether they scored first, second, third, or fourth, that's been there. This is again an ordinal data set. So both my variables, which I've been having, the creativity and position, that's an ordinal data set. And now I want to compute a correlation between these two data sets. Okay. A typical SPSS based assessment tells us, okay, that it's good to analyze and correlate and a bivariate correlation. And if we take these two measures, which is creativity and position, I just take it here and compute the Kendall's tau statistics. Pearson I'm just removing, and Spearman. So I can select the Kendall's tau and Spearman correlation, and I can compute my correlation between them. So I just click on in the SPSS and I get my output. Is my output also visible, Anshika? Could you confirm?
It is visible.
Output is visible or not?
So currently the SPSS sheet is there. Data view.
Okay. So let me just share output. Okay. I think it should be visible now.
No, sir, same sheet. Yes, sir, now it is visible.
Okay. So now by running a correlation between these two ordinal data set, I can compute what are my correlations, rank correlations between these two, including Kendall's tau. Kendall's tau statistics is minus 0.3, okay, and Spearman's rho is minus 0.373. I'm getting a similar result in both the cases, which the relationship is negative. It is having a negative sign. Okay, so relationship has been negative, and my two-tailed significance says it's a significant relationship. So they are different from zero. Okay, so there is some relationship between creativity and you learning, or you are having a position in the biggest liar competition. So creative people, that means if you have been creative, as far as the data set says, if you have been creative, okay, your chances that you getting first position is lower, okay, rather than perceived as positive. It's rather been lower. It's a negative relationship, and which is found to be statistically significant. So it's there as opposed to no relationship at all. Okay, there is some relationship between these two ordinal level data set. Spearman's rank correlation I also get a similar relationship between creativity and your position in the biggest liar competition. We are again having a negative relationship between these two, which is also found to be statistically significant. Two measures for the ordinal level data set, and you can refer one or over the other as well. Okay, but particularly when you have a lot of ties in the data set, and when you have the small sample, then Kendall's tau is a much preferred choice. In any case, you can always refer to Kendall's tau in more generic sense with the use of whenever you have been computing correlation coefficient between ordinal level data set. So let me come back to my presentation now. Okay, so let's take the third measure of for association between variable, which happens to be interval and a ratio scale. So for ratio as well, you can again use the same tool. Okay, and we have here the Karl Pearson's coefficient of correlation. In this case, just a typical one which has been used at multiple places. Typically, what is construed as correlation, they generally refer to Karl Pearson's one. The Karl Pearson's correlation is for the interval and the ratio scale level measure of correlation. Don't use Karl Pearson's correlation for ordinal level data set or with the nominal level data set. There you have a different tool. Okay? And also maintain the hierarchy. If some measure, let's say Kramer's P, which you applied for the nominal level data set, you can also apply it for a ratio level data set as well. But all tools which are being there for ratio level cannot be downgraded and applied to a nominal level data set. Okay? So nominal level tools can be applied to a higher order data set, but the higher order data set tools cannot be applied for a lower level. Okay? So correlation coefficient between interval and ratio scale, okay, we can compute using Karl Pearson's coefficient of correlation, and you can also look for the testing of these correlations as well. Okay, again, I'm not going into the maths of this one, again, because there are softwares which automatically computes this kind of correlations as well. Okay, so for how we generally do this kind of a testing, okay, whenever you have been referring to Karl Pearson's correlation, okay, those assumptions also be met. Linearity, okay, so again, remember that stress and performance example. So linearity is the one which is to be checked as far as the assumption is concerned. Normality, the two variables must be normally distributed, okay, and this is what these two assumptions, you can check it using graphs, scatter plots, okay, and various visualization tools, Okay, so whether to see whether they are normally distributed or whether there is a linearity. If those assumptions are being met, okay, only then we use the Karl Pearson's one. Otherwise, we need to resort to a different measures. Okay, so either you go for non-parametric one, which is Spearman's, Kendall-Stauff, or you can bootstrap if the normality is really an issue. Testing for correlations, there are two kinds of tests which has been available for the Pearson's coefficient of correlation. One is t-test. In the case of t-test, your standard error is, which is generally the one which is reported in the SPSS as well. Okay. So standard error is 1 minus r squared divided by n minus 2, and the t-statistics is your computed correlation divided by the standard error, and you conduct a simple t-test in this case. While there's one more test which has been there, which is Pearson's correlation test with the normality assumption, which is we refer to as the Z-test. And in this case, this test is generally been preferred when you want to test whether my correlation is a number other than 0. For example, you want to say that between these two variables, x and y, the correlation is 0.5 or not. Okay. Or you want to test whether correlation between those the two variables which you have been computing is 1, exactly, perfectly, positively 1. Then in that case, the t-test is not generally a preferred choice. Then you go for generally a z-test, which is based on the Fisher's transformation, which is given by 1 by 2 natural log of 1 plus the correlation divided by 1 minus correlation. And standard error here is 1 over square root of n minus 3. Okay. There in the previous t-test, it was n minus 2, and here it is n minus 3. Okay. And my z statistics is the z computed minus any population correlation z, okay, divided by the standard error. Again, let's see that how we can do it in SPSS. Okay, so I'm taking one more data set, which is scores in the math paper and scores in the computer science paper. Okay, that's the kind of two variables which are the ratio level variables. Okay, so there was a test which has been conducted. Students who obtained the marks in the maths subject and students who obtained the marks in computer science subjects, both are there. I hope the file might be visible to you. Okay. Both are the ratio level data set, and we want to compute whether there is a correlation between these two or not. So again, we can refer to analyze, correlate, bivariate. Okay, and here I take both the variables, and I only compute Pearson's. Okay, I'm not computing Kendall-Stauff and Spearman, because I know that this is a ratio level data set. Okay, and I can compute Pearson in this case. Okay, I can also compute Kendall-Stauff. I can also compute Spearman's. Okay, but because this is a ratio levels data set, so any tool which is for the lower level of data set can also be computed here as well, but not vice versa. Okay, so if it is a Pearson's correlation, don't use it for the nominal and the ordinal level data set. It's only one-way directionality. Okay, so I simply take those variable and click OK, and let me generate the output. Okay, and I share you with the output as well. I hope now the output sheet might be visible to you. Again, okay, in this case, between the marks in the mathematics and marks in so marks in mathematics and marks in computer science, okay, that correlation has been there. So negative 0.021. Okay, so if you obtained a higher marks in mathematics, okay, probably if you don't look at the significance, you might say that okay, that causes or that reduces your marks in computer science. Okay? The two skill set is entirely different, disjoint. But if you now see the significance level, it's a 0.898. It's greater than 0.05. So you reject, you accept the null hypothesis, and the null hypothesis is that there is no correlation between these two. The statistics which has been computed here is the T statistics. Okay, so this tells you that there is not much correlation between maths marks obtained in the maths paper and the marks obtained in the computer science paper. Okay. This is a typical example which you can take it from for the Pearson's correlation and its testing in the different software. Probably all the software which you might refer to okay, generally have these Pearson's correlation, Spearman correlation, Kendall, Stowe. These are quite popular one, and hence I am also been picking up. It doesn't mean that there are no more. Okay, so there are so many other correlations as well. Pearson's correlation coefficient has also been adjusted multiple times. So there is also adjusted correlation coefficient as well. Okay. Let me move to my presentation. Let's move now to having tested for the Karl Pearson's correlations coefficient. Let's now move to the multivariate correlation. In the case of multivariate correlation, we were referring to two typical correlations. One is a partial correlation, and another one is a multiple correlation coefficient of determination as well. In the case of partial correlation, okay, what is the definition? Okay, let's take the definition first. Partial correlation coefficient measures a relationship between two variables, let's say y and x1. Okay, probably there are some queries. Okay, I'll take the queries at the end. Okay, so let me just go ahead for the time being. The partial correlations are falling into the genre of multivariate correlation. What do I mean by multivariate? That means here probably you are computing a correlation in the presence of one or more variables. So it's not just a correlation between let's say y and x1, okay, but there is also presence of x2, x3, x4, x5, or some other variable. What the partial correlation coefficient does is, okay, it computes a correlation between two variables when the influence of all other variable which are connected to my variable of interest, which is y and x1, that's been removed. Okay, so by removing the impact of other variables from my two variables which are on which I want to compute my correlation, that's what I've been computing as a partial correlation. So it tells you only a part of it. So there are variables which can influence your other two variables for which you want to compute a correlation, but that's been negated. So if you really want to compute what is the net impact of one variable over the other, while the impact of all other variable is held as constant. Okay, I'll take up an example in this case. In a typical setup, if you really want to compute using a regression analysis, okay, so you compute a residual of the regressor and residual of let's say in this case, the residual of y and residual of x1, and then you compute a correlation between these two residual series, you get a partial correlation. Okay. However, doing this is a mathematical inconvenience, and hence softwares is actually being used for computing this kind of correlations, etc. Your various formulas for computing a partial correlation has also been there on the screen, but again, as I was saying, it's a mathematical inconvenience, so we'll generally left this task to the software for computing this. Okay, so why exactly we use this kind of partial correlation? What is the meaning in that case? Okay, probably those who want to study a time series analysis, they will also encounter this partial correlation in their time series analysis. There's the partial autocorrelations as well. There are multiple places in finance. Okay, I'm taking an example from educational psychology. Where IQ of a person, IQ of the students, and the SET score, which is scholastic aptitude test of the student, and the creativity score, okay, by using some battery of tests for measuring the creativity. So these three variables are being computed. Okay? And it's an example which is a studied example in the educational psychology domain. Here, when you simply compute correlation, Carl Pearson's correlation between these three variables, and you will be taking only two at a time because correlation is computed between two variables at a time. So if you compute a correlation between IQ and SET score, that was 0.8. So if you have a higher IQ, your performance in the exam, in the SET exam, is also been higher. So your IQ and SET scores is 0.8, pretty high correlation. When you compute correlation between creativity and the SET score, so how creative you are and how much you have achieved in your SET score, that's been 0.25. And you also compute correlation, which is a Carl Pearson's correlation between two variables at a time. There are three variables, but I'm only taking two variables at a time. IQ and creativity, which is 0.3. Okay. If you start inferring from this one, okay, and if you are a school administrator, then probably what kind of conclusion you can draw, okay, if you don't use a partial or correlation in this case. Okay, so in this case, it's a high IQ and high SET score. The relationship is being high. So that means you should admit more students which are having a higher IQ because the correlation between these two are being higher. If you relate with creativity and SET score, okay, so if you inculcate creativity among the student and you want them to perform better, and that's how your results in the university examination or your school examination is also been impacted, then you say, okay, creativity and SET score is very low. So I need not stress too much on the inculcating creativity among the student participants because it's a lower correlation between these two variables. Then IQ and creativity, generally, they are in the different domains altogether. Okay? Don't see them quite connected largely. Okay? Or whatever, two-brain theory, whatever you apply in that case. Okay, so IQ and creativity is again okay, some given phenomena on which you are not been working as of now. Okay, but the correlation between creativity and IQ has been lower. So if as a school administrator, okay, if you simply look at these statistics, the two conclusions which you might draw, okay, in the absence of partial correlation analysis is that, okay, you should admit student if you really want to improve your school's performance in the CBSE board examination or something like that, then you should admit students who already have an IQ test, okay, a higher IQ level. Or and as an administrator, you will not be working on, okay, inculcating creativity among the student because SET score and creativity is very poorly being related. Okay? So admit student, okay, based on high IQ and don't press too much on their creativity as well. But if you look at the partial correlation, okay, and remember what was my partial correlation when I was referring to, that if you compute the correlation between creativity and the SET score, okay, given that IQ is being constant, okay, this is my partial correlation. Remember the definition was that it measures the correlation between two variables, in this case creativity and SET score, by removing the influence of third variable, which is IQ. Okay? And then if you see the partial correlation, then this is 0.85. Okay? What does this tells you? That if you pick up students which are of same IQ level, okay? So that's why I want to negate or the control for the impact of IQ level in my analysis. So if you only work with students who have the same IQ level, Then the creativity and set score has been related. The answer is yes, okay, it's a 0.85. There's a high amount of correlation between creativity and set scores, but with a precondition, the IQ remains constant. While my simple bivariate analysis was not taking the third variable as constant. But in the case of partial analysis, the third variable can be taken as constant, and I get a correlation which is 0.85. There's a high amount of pretty high correlation between creativity score and the set scores if IQ of the student is controlled for, it's remaining constant. Okay, that's the implication of, okay, of probably a significance of the partial correlation. It tells you that if with a certain control variable like IQ in this case, what is the correlation between the two more variable which is being computed. Okay. Let me take the one more same data set which I've been having. Let me again take that biggest liar example. Okay, so let me go to. Okay, now this I think I should have. Okay, that should be visible to you. Okay, so again there is a creativity and this position in the competition, liar's competition, and I have a third variable. Remember here, whether a person is taking competition for the first time or he has been entered competition another time as well. Okay, he's been repeating it, entering competition one more time. So here, how to compute a partial correlation in SPSS. Okay, so you can go to analyze, correlate, and here we have an option of partial correlation. And in the case of partial correlation, I take my creativity and their position as the two variables, and I control for the fact that the person is a repeat taking a competition one more time. Okay, first time, or sorry, second time or more, or he is a novice, he is taking the competition only for first time. Okay, so I want to simply compute what is the correlation between creativity and the position which is backed by the competitor as first, second, third, fourth. But I want to control for the fact that they are the first time entering into the competition, or they have already have an experience of having this competition in their life. Okay, so I can control for that kind of variable, and I can simply press OK, and I might get my results, which are for partial correlation. Let me just share. Again here, okay, you find that there is a negative relationship. The things has not changed. So even if you control for the fact that the person is entering the competition, okay, second time or third time, or he was a fresher in the competition, creativity and their position in the competition, that still remains somewhat similar itself. It's again negative 0.293, and the correlation is also been significantly different from 0. Okay? That's what we can read it from these two tables. Let me again go back to slide. Okay, so we had some discussion on partial correlation. It's a very important phenomena while you want to control two or more variables while looking at correlation between the certain set of variables. Okay, so then there is another phenomena called multiple correlation, okay, which you generally refer in a regression analysis. In case of regression analysis, you see how certain group of variables, okay, taken as a whole, let's say x1, x2, x3, x4, x5, okay, whatever is been the case, how that as a group of variable is related to another variable, which is y. Okay. So your dependent variable is a y variable, your independent variable is x1, x2, x3, x4. So how does this x1 or group of variables, x1, x2, x3, x4, how does that relate with one single variable, which is a y? Okay, that's where the multiple correlation comes up. Okay? So this is helping you understanding how a group of variable helps you explain a particular variable of interest, let's say y. Okay? So if you want to, let's say, compute a multiple correlation between the fact, okay, that the competition has been won by a fresher versus okay, somebody who's been experienced. Okay, that's my x1 variable, and x2 variable is, let's say, my position, creativity. How creativity plus whether they have been entering it for the first time or the second time, that helps me explain what is the position attained by the participant. Okay, so that's where you can use multiple correlation. Probably a role of multiple correlation will be more in your regression analysis, so I will not be touching more on this aspect itself. It works as a goodness of fit measure for your regression analysis. Let's take some more correlation coefficient as well, which are specific cases only. There's something called as a biserial correlation. What happens in the case of biserial correlation is that if you take one, again, you have been computing a correlation between two okay, probably I will soon be taking your queries, okay, one by one. Let me complete on these some more specific aspect. In the case of biserial correlation, what has been the case is that if your one of the variable is a dichotomous variable, that means it can only take two values. Let's say gender, male or female, okay, and vis-a-vis another variable which is a scale level variable. So if your one variable is a variable which is nominal data set, another variable is your continuous variable, ratio level variable, then the correlation which you compute is called as a biserial correlation. Okay. A variation of biserial correlation is a point biserial, okay, in which case you are more discrete in terms of the okay. That means the variable which is having the dichotomous nature, okay, male or female or pregnant or not pregnant or dead or alive. Okay, if you have been precise about it, okay, then you use point biserial. Otherwise, a biserial correlation coefficient also works. Not much difference, but yes, point biserial is when you have been having a discrete dichotomy. Okay? When you have a continuous dichotomy, in the sense, let's say you put certain group of students as fail, another group of students as pass, okay, then it's not a discrete, it may be continuous. Okay, so why exactly you have been just, for your convenience, you have been putting into two different categories itself. Otherwise, in any case, biserial correlation works in all the cases, but if you have been having a discrete dichotomy, then the point biserial is being computed. Again, there's a couple of software which give you readily this coefficient itself. Then probably how you can handle non-linearity. Remember that example of stress versus performance. Okay, it's not a linear relationship. Then there are certain measures which are being suggested, which is called a box-box transformation. Box-box transformation can handle some sort of linearity, but it's not a panacea that you can always compute a non-linearity transform a box-box, okay, and then you compute it. Yes, the point which I'm putting up, why I'm putting these slides, okay, and I'm not delving much more into it, okay, because that will consume a lot of our time. Okay, is the fact that, okay, if you are having those assumptions of linearity and normality not being maintained, then what to do? Okay, so there's at least something which you can search it on further, and you can use that for your purposes. So box-box transformation is one way in which you can handle non-linearity, and if that transformation also makes your data normal, okay, then you can also use the box-box transformation okay, for the computation of the correlation itself. But again, it's not a sure shot in all the cases itself. Okay? It might be helpful in some of the instances. For example, normality, if it is not been there, then You can also resort to something called as the bootstrapping as well. If normality is not been there, then you can also refer to a non-parametric test as well. So there are a couple of other alternatives as well, but Boxcox is one more. At the end, okay, probably what I should be saying is always be careful about something called as a spurious correlation. Okay? Spurious correlation is something which you try to make a relationship between variables which are not actually related by a cause. Okay? So that means you compute what is the IQ of a person and shoe size of that person. Okay? So you can relate any variable. Okay, no software will prohibit you to not putting another variable. Okay? There are various examples: Honduras money supply and US GDP. Okay? There are so many examples of spurious correlation. So spurious correlation is when you compute a correlation without any basis, without any theory, okay, and you start making a relationship, and relationship is also being high, and then you start making an interpretation. Okay, this causes this one, okay, which may not always be true. Okay, so again, go back to that same example. Causation is not implied by correlation. Can provide you certain statistical evidences in support of your causation hypothesis, but not in all cases. Okay? It should generally be true. High correlation means causation. Okay? A causation should be coupled with high correlation, but not okay always the case. Okay? You will have an exceptions. When you try to infer causation from correlation, okay, that's again a case of a spurious correlation, because you computed a very high correlation and you say, okay, that's not being correlated. Okay, and I saw again, remember that example that your correlation between stress and performance is 0, but you know that the stress and performance theoretically are highly dependent on each other. However, the relationship, the dependency is not a linear one. Let me end okay, at this stage and take up your questions one by one. Okay, so that probably I can put some clarity on this. Yeah.
So should I start with the questions?
Yeah.
The very first question is regarding, if R is not significant, then can we rely on it?
Okay, if R is not significant, then okay, what does that mean? Statistically, it means that correlation between the variable is 0. Okay. So your statistical evidences are saying that the two variables you were trying to correlate are simply not being correlated. So, relying is a different thing, okay, but the statistical evidence is simply saying that two coefficients, two variables are not being related.
So the next is a question by Dr. J. Rival, D930. Pearson correlation possible interpretation will remain same even in higher number of n, or will it change?
Okay, obviously, okay, if the number of observation happens to be higher, then your power of the test is more. Okay, that means statistical properties of the test is good. It does vary. The power of the test is a function of the number of observation. So if your correlation coefficient is definitely, it has been affected by the number of observation which you have been having. So interpretation wise, they will remain the same. Okay, but as far as the robustness of the test is concerned, whether you have a good test or not so good test. Okay, in technical word, we say that the power of the test. Okay, so whether that remains the same or not, okay, that's what will be varying. Next one.
So the next is, can correlation be negative, and how to interpret it?
Yes, correlation can very well be negative. Okay, and there are many examples in which probably you will have a negative correlations as well. Okay, so for example, if I talk about the stress versus the performance, and only on the side where there's too much amount of stress which has been there. Okay, so if you increase the amount of stress, the performance of the person goes down. Okay, so yes, it can very well be negative. Okay, and interpretation wise, as far as statistical significance is concerned, it remains as it is.
So next is, if one variable is nominal and another is ordinal, then what is the measure of association?
That's a biserial. I said. Okay. I talked about a combination, which is so you have two choices in such a case. One is a nominal one, another is a okay an interval or a ratio one. Okay, so you have two choices. First one is Cramer's V. Okay, because nominal level okay testing can be applied to all. Okay, so nominal level can also be applied to scale level data set as well, but not vice versa. So you have two choices. First one you can pick up as a Cramer's V, and second one you can pick up the biserial correlation, which is typically the for this kind of variables itself. The next one.
So the next is how to remove serial correlation from data with multiple regression analysis.
Serial correlation in the data. Okay, I'm not sure. Okay, what the question is. But yes, okay, PACF and other are your correlogram. Okay, is a tool which you can use it for this kind of elimination. So quite often, partial correlation you can that's automatically generated from the software itself. It also again works on the principle of removing the other variables, controlling for the effect of other variables while computing a correlation.
So the next is, there is one person, Saranya, ma'am is asking, can she apply partial correlation in the case of job hopping, cognitive dissonance, and job satisfaction?
The thing is, you need to see firstly, okay, what kind of correlation you are computing. So the version which I referred to was for applicable in the case of data set which is interval and ratio one. Okay, so that's the first thing which should be noting. Okay, very well, you can always apply. Okay. A simple word of the answer is yes. Okay, but the two things should be cautious of is firstly, what is the level of data set for which you have been applying, okay? And there's nothing which debars you for controlling for the effect. So you can always control for the effect of all other variables, whatever number you want to decide.
So few participants are
Next one.
asking how to select the control variable.
That comes from your theory. Okay, there's no statistical measure for the control. So whatever your literature review says that having control for the IQ. If I continue with the same example, having control for the IQ, creativity, and the set score of the candidate, okay, respondent is highly correlated. So IQ was considered as the control variable. So beside IQ, you can take age, you can also take their social background, you can take it many other variables, but that will come from your review of literature, not coming from the statistics. You need to decide about what is your control variable. In that case, you want to conduct partial correlation. Next one.
So few students are asking to re-explain the concept of bootstrap.
Okay, bootstrap is a okay. It will take a lot of time. What is a bootstrapping? Okay, bootstrapping is generating sample statistics from another sample itself because you don't have a data of the population. Okay, so it's a technical way. It's a procedure which is generally been resorted to when the normality of the data set is at the stake. Okay, so data is not normal. We generally refer to two such tools called jackknifing and bootstrapping. Okay. It's an entirely different discussion altogether. But the only thing which I can say in that case, okay, it generates a lot of sample. And one thing is also, okay, you should be careful of, okay, which you can also see is that if you conduct a bootstrap on same data set and I conduct a bootstrap on the same data set, our numbers may not match. Okay, and also if you conduct it you conduct your bootstrap result, okay, and you conduct a bootstrap result after an hour, okay, again your result will not match because it's a random sampling from the sample itself. Okay, so it will be an entirely different discussion altogether. Okay. This may not be an appropriate I may not have appropriate amount of time to explain that phenomenon.
Okay, sir.
Next one.
Also, one of the participant is asking whether applying partial R square is mandatory.
That solely depends upon your objective. Okay? So if you don't want to compute it from that perspective, partial R square, okay? If your work is automatically is being done from running a simple regression, there's no need to compute a correlation. Regression will be a step ahead of the correlation analysis itself.
So the next is one of the participants is asking how to provide ranks while computing correlation in ordinal dataset.
Okay, in ordinal data set, you already have generated a rank. Okay, so the moment you are saying it's an ordinal one, that means you have ordered them. Okay, and whether ascending or descending. Okay, so it's already been provided. But if you have a data and then you compute a rank, okay, so your software automatically does it. Excel does it with the rank function, rank EQ, rank okay, up. Okay, so there are Excel functions. Spaces also does it at the background itself. So it will might have already been computed when you generated that data set.
So the next is partial correlation used for checking the effect of mediating or moderating variable?
It might be, because you are controlling for a certain effects, okay, whether that really changes your correlation. Okay, for example, if I continue with the same example itself, IQ and creativity and SQ. It might happen that if you have a high IQ, okay, this will actually change a correlation, okay, from one set of variable to another set of variable. So it might be intervening variable in between. Now, how does that intervention is being done, mediating or moderating? Okay? That will be subject to your another tools of analysis on SCM or other. Okay? But yes, you can get first-hand information from that. Okay? Remember, at the back of the structural equation modeling, it is still the correlation structure which works. Okay? So the AMOS, the software which says analysis of moment structure. This is one such product moment which is the basis for making an understanding about the moment structure in that. Yes, it can be done to analyze the mediating and moderating effects of on the variable. The next one.
So there is one question. Is it necessary to apply parametric or non-parametric test to conduct correlation analysis?
The choice between parametric and non-parametric is more guided by assumption versus the feature. Okay? You resort to non-parametric because the assumption of parametric test is generally not being met. Okay? And one of the generally assumption happens to be normality. So if your variables are not multivariate normal, okay, then you have to go for the non-parametric test. Again, the issue with the non-parametric test is that non-parametric test has lower power. Okay, so the power of the test, okay, which is again I've been saying that that's a technical word. Power of the test is not to commit type 2 error. So 1 minus beta is your power of the test. Okay, so power of the test is higher for a parametric test as compared to non-parametric test. A non-parametric test has lower power, but then the convenience with the non-parametric test is that it relaxes the assumption of normality. That's a kind of trade-off which you have to be doing as a researcher while making a selection.
So the next is in case of non-linearity, can correlation be directly applied?
Your conventional measure without any Box-Cox transformation, okay, will give you again a spurious results, because that will tell you that there is no correlation, but there might be a correlation or vice versa. Okay, so you need to resort to some sort of transformation, or there are ways in which non-linear transformations. There's other correlations, which again works on some more transformations. So may not be Box-Cox transformation, but some another different transformations also.
So one of the participants is asking, is spurious correlation scientific?
Spurious correlation, okay, what do they mean by spurious scientific? That's what I may not be able to comment on that, okay? But yes, okay, whatever correlation which you have computed, but then it's not being backed by the proper reasoning. That's one way, okay? Probably if I continue with the example, Okay, what is the IQ of all the participants in this webinar, and what are the shoe sizes of their the participant? You can compute a correlation. You might get a statistical significant result as a whole. Okay, but can you really have a causation between the foot size or shoe size, okay, and the IQ of a person? Okay, you can scientifically prove that. Okay, so as the child grows from from year 1 of age to year 19 or 20 of age, okay, the foot shoe sizes increases, and so does the IQ of a person. It was scientifically proving that, okay, yes, this is not a case of spurious correlation, okay, but probably at the back of it, okay, there will be some other factor which will be contributing in that case. So you might fall trap into another mode of the spurious correlation itself. Okay? So if you are able to back it by proper theory, only then you can justify a spurious correlation, not otherwise.
So the next is to elaborate the hypothesis in correlation.
Generally, in all these hypotheses, the null happens to be that the correlation between the variable on which you have computed the correlation coefficient is 0. With an alternative that it's not a 0. Now, so that's generally the null and alternate hypothesis in almost all the tests.
Sir, in a biogeographical research, which type of correlation is more suitable and accurate, will give accurate results?
Whatever be the field of analysis, okay, the guiding principle still remains the same, whether it's educational psychology or geography or economics or finance or any other field of analysis. Okay, you need to see at least two things in terms of conducting a correlation analysis. First is what is the kind of data which you have. Is it a ratio level data? It's a square meter of a space, or is it a rainfall? Okay. What kind of data there? Is it nominal one? Is it ordinal one? It's an interval one, or is it a ratio scale? That's first thing which you need to decide upon, irrespective of the field of analysis you have been conducting. And second thing which you need to be analyzing is that, okay, whatever tests you want to apply it based on, obviously, whatever is the type of data which you have been handling. Okay. The second thing is that whatever test you apply, whether the assumptions of that test is being met. Okay. For example, in the case of Karl-Pearson coefficient, the assumptions are linearity, and second one is that of normality. So are those assumptions validated or not? Okay, if they have been validated, okay, you can go ahead and conduct a Karl-Pearson correlation. Otherwise, you need to resort to those solutions in that case. So go for non-parametric one, or you have a transformation. Okay, then you can analyze it. So it's not dependent upon which field you have been applying. Our toolbox remains the same. Okay, so my screwdriver is the same. Whether using a screwdriver, you tight a bulb, or you tight a car. Okay, that's dependent upon your objective. Yeah, next one.
Next is, if the correlation is 0, can we go for regression analysis or not?
You will get the same answer. Okay, if the correlation has been 0, then your regression will also be, coefficient will also be 0, because regression coefficient beta is correlation, okay, multiplied by the standard deviation of dependent divided by standard deviation of independent. So if the correlation is 0, okay, then your beta is also being 0, or close to 0 in a statistical sense itself. So you will not get a different answer, even if you go ahead with the regression analysis.
So how to analyze normality in SPSS?
Probably that might have discussed in your hypothesis and this test. Okay. Otherwise, okay, there are a couple of tests as well. Even in SPSS, you can conduct these normality tests. Okay, and the field has a lot of discussion which you can refer to. So there is a Wilk-Shapiro test, there is Kolmogorov-Smirnov test, there is Jacques-Bera test. Okay. There are a couple of tests which you can apply. Okay, so one Mrs. test, okay, Lilliefors test. There are various tests which have been available, which you can see, including graphic QP plot, QQ plot. Okay, this is what you can do, looking at symmetry of the data set. So there are multiple battery of tests which you can refer to, whether to check whether the data is normally distributed or not.
So the next is, what is inferring causation from correlation?
That means you look at the correlation coefficient, you find, okay, correlation coefficient is 0, and you start inferring that there is no relationship between these two variables. Okay? But the example which I used there was, okay, to compute a correlation between stress and performance, and the entire spectrum of stress has been taken. Okay? Almost 100%, your correlation coefficient will be 0, because performance goes up as the stress goes up, okay, and then performance goes down as the stress goes down. So goes up again, goes up. Okay, so if you compute a correlation between that, correlation is 0, and you might infer that there is no relationship between the two variable. Performance and stress has not been related, but actually the correct inference from the data set is that, okay, the relationship between performance and the stress is non-linear. So it's a highly dependent, but you're looking at the correlation coefficient, you infer that, okay, they are not being correlated at all.
Next is, what is serial correlation in time series data?
Serial correlation is okay. Probably a more discussion will be done by Dr. Ananya ma'am. Okay, from talking about autocorrelation in that case. So the serial correlation in time series data set refers to a correlation of the residuals with the residuals itself, but after a lag. Okay, so as far as the same series is concerned, and there's a correlation between the series okay, with a lag is been computed. That should not exist in a time series in any regression analysis, but that's generally a phenomena which you observe in a time series data set. So probably a more discussion there will be a much more fruitful.
So can we take more questions now?
Yeah, go ahead.
So there is one person who is asking, if the data set is normally distributed, then only can Box-Cox transformation can be applied?
No, it's rather vice versa. You resort to Box-Cox transformation if you find your data set is not normal, because which typically happens to be the case. Okay, so unless you have a very large sample size, okay, which makes you apply a central limit theorem, okay, and by which you can resort to, okay, you will be having a normality. But if your data set is either small or your data set is okay, really a population is not normal, and in that case you resort to Box-Cox transformation. Okay, the idea there is that by transforming a variable, you might end up having a okay, normality, okay, or non-linearity into linearity, and then you can apply your standard test of Pearson correlation for computation purposes.
One person is asking, if I got 0.9 as my correlation value, can I term it as perfectly correlated?
Okay, there are two things. Okay, first, perfect correlation in mathematical way is exactly equal to 1. Okay, no less than that. Okay, the second thing is what you obtained is a sample correlation. You can test against a hypothesis that my population correlation coefficient is perfectly positive 1. Okay, if you with 0.9 of a sample correlation, if you are able to accept the null that your population correlation is exactly equal to 1, then you can term it, okay, that it's a perfectly correlated, not before that. So you need to back it by your statistical evidences.
And that's the last question of the day. If we have a correlation value of around 0.55, then can we perform linear regression and will it be beneficial?
Okay, there are two aspects of this. Okay, whether the correlation is 0.5 or 0.2, it hardly matters as far as linearity is concerned, so long as the relationship between the variable is linear or not. Okay, so you may not, looking at the correlation coefficient, you cannot interpret whether there is a linear correlation or not. Okay, that's a one aspect. Second thing, what has been referred as linear regression is not a linearity between the variable. It's a linearity in the parameter. Okay? So whether your alpha beta coefficients are linear function of error term or not. Okay? So that's entirely a different thing. Probably a more discussion will be on your regression section. But there the linearity is entirely different. That means you can still have a linear regression between stress and performance. Okay, though the relationship between the stress and performance is non-linear. Okay, I know that this is a dichotomy which probably in the regression analysis first class on regression or second class on regression we generally deal with. Okay, but linearity in the terms of variable is different from linearity in terms of parameter. Okay, So there, when you say linear regression, it's a linearity in parameter, not the linearity in variable.
Thank you, sir, for such a wonderful session. We have exhausted almost all the questions in the chat section. We are very thankful for the enriching and wonderful session of yours on correlation and measures of association with diagrammatic presentations and hands-on sessions on SPSS with real-life examples.
Sure.
You also explained the concept of causation and correlation from a very different perspective. Partial and multiple regression concepts were also explained in a lot of detail. Thank you, sir. It's a privilege to have you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I'll send this presentation to the conveners, okay, who can in turn circulate it to the student so that you might get to about what exactly I was just presenting on. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.